enough of Pluto, about Pluto so far. I have talked a lot about it. I wanted to talk about Uranus now. Some people like to call it Uranus. I don't know. I was born outside the United States. English is not my native language. So you pick one. I find it ironic that Uranus is the planet with two different names, so two different pronunciations. And maybe if you talk to some Greek people or non-native speakers, they will have yet another pronunciation because Uranus doesn't really care. In fact, if you look at the astronomical behavior of Uranus, so if you go and look at the solar system, you will see that most of the planets in our system are actually, they might be tilted a little bit according relative to their orbit. So if you have the sun here and the planets are going around it, our Earth is tilted. We all know it's about 22 degrees or so. Most of the planets might have some tilt, but more or less they are still vertical compared to that orbit. Not Uranus. Uranus actually spins flat on its belly. So if this is the sun and Uranus is going around like that, Uranus is spinning flat on its belly. I have no idea how the seasons look on Uranus. I would imagine one pole points towards the sun and gets all the daylight, and the other pole is all night. I don't know. NASA probably has some information, so you can just go and look for more if you're interested. But going back to Uranus, it's a very contrarian planet. I would know. I have a very close relationship with Uranus, but that's a very long story for another day. I'll spare you that story for now. But I wanted to bring up Uranus today because Uranus, when it transits, it's very easy to spot. It moves slow, not as slow as Pluto, but still pretty slow. And yet its effect is very, very abrupt because that's the nature of Uranus. While Pluto, if you're undergoing a Pluto transit, it might take a year before you actually catch on to that something is going on. For Uranus, it's really the sudden and abrupt changes. First, Uranus knocks lightly on your psyche. Hey, are you ready to change your mindset? Are you ready to change your perception of a situation? Would you like to experience another view? Would you like to change that? So it begins very subtly in your psyche. And if you're not open there, or if you're not used to that, you may miss those. Or you're not going to miss them because Uranus is usually pretty loud. But you might choose not to see that change, not to experience an adventure, not to see something from another angle and see how things can be from that, in that another way of viewing things. And that is usually, sadly, a mistake that leads to the bad rep for Uranus. Because if you don't allow for changes to happen subtly in your mind, you're practically keeping that valve closed. And pressure, and Uranus will create that pressure, can be plugged only for that long. Sooner or later, something will have to explode. And when things explode metaphorically, they actually start showing up on the visible world. Accidents, unpleasant experiences with other people. Suddenly you're like, where did that come from? You missed a banana peel, or you missed the stoplight at the intersection, or someone else missed the stoplight at the intersection. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. The point is that Uranus is that sudden and abrupt change in the way you are living your life. So I always tell people, watch out for those sudden and unexpected changes and allow that room in your head. There's no need for fear, really. I remember when Uranus was passing through my 7th house, and that 7th house in classical astrology is all about your spouse. And I was like, oh my goodness, am I going to be divorced from my husband? Is something bad going to happen? Well, you know what? I did work on myself a lot, and I was open to change my mindset. I did things that I never did before. I accepted new responsibilities, and they were very sudden. One day I said, hey, my husband has always taken my car to the car dealer or to the shop. It is my time. it is time for me to take that responsibility and do it myself. Or, I will drive myself alone somewhere versus before waiting for my husband, because it's much more fun to go two of us, right? So those things actually provided the outlet for the changes to occur in my mind. So by the time the change was over, what happened was I actually accidentally lost my wedding ring. I still suspect it was that sourdough bread I was making. I enjoyed too much kneading it. And there was so much of that watching and making a mess in my kitchen. I don't know. That's my suspicion. But the point is that the ring was lost. And then my husband said, you know what? We were poor graduate students when we bought those rings. It's time for us to go and buy ourselves something nice, more expensive and more beautiful. And so it turned out actually more of a moment of a renewal of our vows rather than a divorce that I actually worried so much. But anyway, that's the example for Uranus. It can go both ways. I don't want to say nothing bad will happen, but I want to say that bad does not have to happen at all. It is like an earthquake. Think about earthquakes. There's pressure and there's tension between the different plates that are pushing against each other, and that pressure accumulates until one day it has to burst out in the form of an earthquake. Our job is simply not to wait until that moment. Don't forget to just always be on the lookout and be open for new views, new ways of life, new perception, everything new. If it looks safe and it doesn't cost much effort, why not? Go ahead and do it.